Max Payne isn't just another video game protagonist, he's a walking wound, a man carved out of grief and gunpowder, and over 2 decades his story has been told in 3 unforgettable games, a disastrously bad film, and now, finally, whispers of a long-awaited return. In this video we're going to deep dive into the entire Max Payne saga, from the snow-covered streets of Remedy's original masterpiece, through the heartbreak and brilliance of its sequel, into Rockstar's bold and bloody reinvention, and then the long silence that followed. We'll uncover what each game did right, where they fell short, how they sold, and the lasting mark they left on the industry. And yes, unfortunately, we will talk about the film. This isn't just a history, this is the rise, fall, and unfinished future of a noir icon. In 2001, Remedy Entertainment was a small Finnish studio with big ambitions. Their game wasn't about space marines or fantasy heroes, it was about a broken man with a badge, a dead family, a death wish, and a painkiller addiction. Set in a snow-covered, hellish vision of New York City, Max Payne fused the stylized gunplay of John Woo's films with the hard-boiled narration of a pulp detective novel. Story sequences played out as graphic novel panels, narrated in James McCaffrey's gravelly, sardonic voice.
I walked straight in.
And then there was bullet time, borrowed from the cinematic masterpiece that was The Matrix, a mechanic so revolutionary that it instantly became the game's signature. With the press of a button, time slowed to a crawl, allowing Max to dive sideways in a spray of bullets, sending shell casings tumbling through the air while enemies stumbled and crumpled in slow motion. It wasn't just a gimmick, it made you feel like the main character in an action movie, and it was unlike anything players had experienced before or arguably since. Critics loved it, audiences loved it. The game went on to sell over 4 million copies, winning multiple Game of the Year awards and even a BAFTA in Best PC Game. If it had any flaw, it was its brevity and linearity. The campaign was short and the level design offered little deviation from a straight path, but it didn't matter. Max Payne had made its mark, and the industry and fans worldwide took notice. 2 years later, Remedy returned with Max Payne 2: The Fall of Max Payne. This was a shorter, tighter, and far more intimate game. Where the first story was a story of revenge, the sequel was about inevitability. Max was older now, more tired. He had traded the explosive rage of grief for a weary acceptance of his own self-destruction. The game deepened its noir elements. The romance between Max and Mona Sachs became the emotional core of the narrative, a doomed love affair between 2 killers on opposite sides of the law. The writing leaned harder into metaphor, the pacing was smoother, and the combat was more fluid. Bullet time now recharged dynamically, allowing for faster, deadlier encounters. Critics hailed it as an improvement in nearly every way. It was more polished, it was more refined, it was more emotionally resonant, but commercially, it did not do well. Despite rave reviews, Max Payne 2 sold poorly, selling 2.5 million copies, well below that of the first game, leaving Take-Two publicly disappointed in the performance. And this is very important to remind everyone, after the success of Max Payne 1, Take-Two Interactive purchased the IP rights for Max Payne as a franchise, however allowing Remedy still to make Max Payne 2. The short runtime and bleak tone likely kept casual audiences away, combined with a poor and misleading marketing campaign. After Max Payne 2, Remedy moved on to other projects, leaving Max's fate in the hands of someone else entirely. It is worth noting that for Remedy, the vision was always that Max Payne 2 would be their last installment. Sam Lake, the main man at Remedy during the Max Payne years, said the franchise's hiatus following Max Payne 2 had nothing to do with the relatively lower sales from their perspective, but that the rights of the IP had been sold to Take-Two following the release of the first game, and as part of the agreement, it was decided that Remedy would make one more title in the series and then that would be it. Sam goes on to say, after the first game came out, the IP rights were sold to Take-Two and Rockstar, and part of that deal was an agreement that we would create the sequel. So without understanding, it was a nice situation. We have a lot of passion towards Max Payne. It was wonderful to create that and to take certain ideas from the first one, and making a sequel was great fun in many ways, but at the same time, and with all the understanding that this will be the final Max Payne game for us, and you could kind of go through that emotional process while working on it, saying goodbye. So from a creator's perspective, that was a really nice way to go. Between Max Payne 2 and 3 in 2008, Hollywood tried its hand at bringing Max to the big screen. The result is a Max Payne film starring Mark Wahlberg, a lifeless PG-13. Who the hell, by the way, makes a Max Payne film and decides to make it PG-13? That thing needed to be 15 or 18 at a bare minimum. Anyway, the result was a lifeless, stripped away film, completely devoid of all the nuance and grit that made the franchise so iconic, replacing it with bland firefights and baffling supernatural imagery. Critics savaged it. It sits at a 16% rating on Rotten Tomatoes, widely regarded as one of the worst video game adaptations ever made. Ironically, it was financially successful, grossing over $85 million on a $35 million budget. But for fans, it was simply not Max Payne. And at the time, it was yet another Hollywood attempt at bringing a game series to the big screen that utterly failed to resonate with fans or critics. Let's be honest, Mark Wahlberg as the gritty, gravelly, depressed Max Payne was a monumental miscasting. Were this IP to be given a second lease of life on TV or film now, and by the way, I think a TV show would actually be how this would be brought back, I would cast Jon Bernthal as Max Payne. Tell me that's a bad casting, I dare you. It's perfect casting, both visually and vocally.
Ones I put down, the people I killed.
I will die on the hill that says Jon Bernthal would be a great Max Payne. Anyway, 8 years later, in 2012, Max finally returned to the gaming world, but he wasn't the same. In Max Payne 3, developed by Rockstar Games, the snow was gone. The neon-soaked streets of New York were replaced by the scorching heat of Sao Paulo, Brazil. Max was bald, bloated, and wearing a Hawaiian shirt. His painkillers had been replaced by whiskey. It was a bold reinvention. The noir narration remained, but the world was bigger, louder, and bloodier. Gunfights were sprawling, cinematic set pieces that spilled across rooftops, football stadiums, and grimy favelas. Bullet time was more realistic, with visible muscle strain as Max dove through windows and crashed to the floor. The gameplay was impeccable, the presentation flawless, but fans were divided. Some loved the grittier, more grounded tone. Others missed the surreal dream sequences, the snow, the feeling of being trapped in a noir nightmare that can only come with a city like New York. To understand the commercial disappointment aspect of Max Payne 3, it's very important to also understand the development hell it went through in its creation. Rockstar acquired the rights to Max Payne from Remedy in 2004, promising to carry the series forward. But what should have been a straightforward handoff turned into one of the longest and most turbulent productions in Rockstar's history. Development began at Rockstar Vancouver. Early concepts looked nothing like the game would eventually play, more in line with the New York noir of the first two games, with snow, shadows, and that familiar cold isolation. But Rockstar's leadership kept pushing for something bigger, something that would pull the franchise out of the shadows and into the heat of a new setting. That pivot to Sao Paulo meant massive rewrites. Story beats were scrapped, locations rebuilt from scratch, and every piece of motion capture had to be redone. Entire systems, including cover mechanics and the new animation-driven bullet time, went through multiple iterations. The game finally released in May 2012, 4 years later than Rockstar's original internal target. Despite all this, in its first month, Max Payne 3 sold only 440,000 copies in the US. Take-Two labeled its performance a disappointment, and for the hundreds of people who had endured years of shifting goals and crunch, it was a bittersweet finish. It was a critical success, but a commercial disappointment, and with Rockstar's attention shifting to GTA 5, Max was once again left in the dark. After Max Payne 3, the franchise fell silent. No remasters, no spin-offs, no teases, just a ghost in Rockstar's growing IP vault. But then, in 2022, something truly unexpected happened. Remedy and Rockstar announced the remakes of Max Payne 1 and 2 were in development. Rebuilt from the ground up in Remedy's Northlight engine, the same tech that's powered Control and the recent Alan Wake 2. No release date, no gameplay, just a promise that Max Payne would return. Personally, I cannot wait. The idea of revisiting the iconic locations of the first two games in current-gen graphics with current-gen gameplay is everything I want from the series. The first two games were phenomenal in their reach, their storytelling, their desire to make players think and understand a very deep, dark storyline. I would love to say that an entirely new Max Payne game would be great, But in today's industry, I feel remakes are the safer option, not only for us as a consumer and fans of a franchise, but also the studios that would actually end up making them. We are seeing far too many original IPs and new games getting cancelled at various stages of production. Remakes just feel like the safer option, and despite sometimes saying playing it safe is playing it boring, I really want to replay Max Payne 1 and 2 on a current gen console or high-end gaming PC, with everything that offers. Max Payne has always been more than a series. It's a feeling from a very specific time of gaming. A slow dive through gunsmoke, a monologue whispered over the sound of rain on concrete. It's about pain that never truly fades. The remakes may bring Max back into the light, but until then, he's waiting in the shadows, one bullet and one painkiller at a time. If you've enjoyed this trip down memory lane revisiting the Max Payne franchise, and please do let me know. Let me know which game was your favorite. Let me know how you feel about the rumored remakes. And until next time, something.